Totally sick, the whole thing. In a good way. They're bad. In a good way. Man, that Janeway, she's so phony. In a good way. Guess what? Prodigy's back. My favorite new Trek show. Maybe it's not for everyone, but it's kind of for me, because I have the mind of a child. Let's not criticize the show and say it's for children as a crutch, okay? Frankly, if you're making a Star Trek show for kids, that just means it doesn't have cursing or gore. Like most of classic Star Trek. Makes you think, right? Just like it's a disservice to blow away complaints and inadequacies from the surface of Lower Decks by saying it's just a cartoon, it's not fair to criticize this or let it get away with anything because it's a kid show. Nickelodeon presents Star Trek Prodigy. Protostar, Progeny, kids, youthful energy, a freshness. This show felt fresh. This particular episode, which is the return of the second half of the first season, I don't know how this stuff works out. It's simply called Asylum. Our main characters are now attempting to return the Protostar to Starfleet. Bit of a setup for you. We know that the Protostar is kind of like a Trojan horse. It's a Starfleet ship, but deep on the inside, it's been tampered with. Not a spoiler, because I assume you've been watching the show up to this point, or at least watching my reviews. Dreadnought, a previously thought defeated villain, has infected, probably at the behest of the Diviner, our villain that we defeated last episode, with a virus, okay? Protostar has a virus in it. When it arrives in Starfleet space, and Starfleet greets it with open arms, and it connects computers together, the computers handshake. It transfers a deadly spirit of digital chaos into the very heart of Starfleet and the Federation. This is the Diviner's grand plan. Our characters don't know it, but we do. Sets up some drama, some suspense. We're waiting for the moment they find out what we know. There's like a gun under the table. Not literally. If you recognize the filmmaking parlance. This episode really felt like it should have been like 2 half-hour parts jammed together when Prodigy first began. Episode 1 and Episode 2 were combined into 1 hour-long episode. That was a good idea. It would have been a good idea, I believe, to have this be an hour-long episode, or the first 2 episodes jammed together. It feels like this episode doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It smacks of Picard and Discovery, that being long movies with arbitrary, placed points along its runtime to cut into an episode that doesn't seem to make sense. This episode doesn't fulfill what it's setting up quite right. We needed another half hour, is what I'm trying to say. We needed to see the end to our beginning. It feels like it just kind of turns off, really. I wanted more, but what I got was pretty cool. Fun parts don't make a perfectly competent whole. That's what's going on in this episode. So with that out of the way, let's all find out what's going down inside Asylum. Let's do some asylum seeking ourselves, right? we're going to watch this, if I may say, better show to seek asylum from shows like Picard that I wasn't a big fan of. Let's asylum our way down into this episode. Our intro sequence, not the intro sequence for the show, but the show the show before the show that sets up the tone. You'll notice it's very common screenwriting technique. We're showing like a previously on type thing just to get the viewers on board, and we're on board. And it's a submersible ship. Okay? Some type of submarine device, very futuristic, very cool, in an underwater environment on a planet the viewers don't know anything about at this point. Very beautiful. They definitely escape what appears to be hunters / poachers. I don't know. With a whale in tow. I'm going to call it a whale. I believe they called it something else in the show. I don't remember. And then they beam the whale onto the protostar to rescue it from these hunters. One of our characters saying if they only knew that their ecosystem depends on the existence of this animal. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Wait. We're trying to go back to Starfleet with our stolen ship with good deeds under our belt. At no point did Hologram Janeway said this is going to make you look crazy, stupid, irresponsible. I don't know about you, but my surface level, pun intended, estimation of these creatures, the hunters, if you will, were a part of the ecosystem of this world. They were hunting this whale. They're in the same food chain. If you remove the whale, you're affecting that chain. Therefore, you're altering the destiny of that planet, which I assume is pre-warp. Unless you can prove that interstellar sentience, as in an alien race somewhere else, even us, perhaps, have caused something to go wrong on this planet, then we can solve it. We can make grounds to solve that problem if it's our fault and we don't get detected. We interfered with the life cycle of this planet, arbitrarily referring to these hunters / poachers as not being in the same food chain as this whale, implying that because we're creating an exception. We're calling them the exception to the rule of the food chain here. We're interfering with it, and they see the ship. Did Hologram Janeway not immediately veto this idea? Starfleet isn't going to like that. It's happened before. I didn't like it. I believe this is how Discovery starts. Episode 1. Are they not averting a ecological disaster on some alien world? I can't remember if they came up with an excuse for it, though. Like, it's our fault, blah, blah, blah. Something happened with some mining operation somewhere else causing this. That's all you gotta do. One little throwaway line. But we didn't get that here. So our episode just opens with our characters saving a whale from what is ostensibly its predator. And then they say the ecosystem relies on that animal. We just artificially altered the natural outcome ecologically of this planet. So why did we set the exception for these hunters? What was different? They looked humanoid? That's not enough. More explanation needed. Needed a few lines of dialogue in there. A sequence before this explaining why we're doing it. Could have been cool. Actually, it was cool. Purely visually, it was a real feast. Everything had a tangible feeling to it. The water looked real. It felt crisp. A beautiful show. And this intro does not disappoint. We get back to the ship, momentarily chewed out by hologram Janeway, saying you almost broke the Prime Directive or something like that, even though they did. And they got caught. I think they saw the ship. Par for the course, I guess. Right? Happens all the time. It's illegal, except for when it's not. Saying it was done before, as I've often said on this channel, saying something was done before is not an excuse to do it again. If you think about it like that, it makes perfect sense. But many writers will get away with a dumb idea, and they can justify it by saying, well, they did it in TOS, they did it in TNG, or what have you. No. This is after that. We do better. You always do better. That's how you get better shows. If you don't, every show is worse than the last one. You keep making excuses, right? Making excuses for why this doesn't matter in this particular case. Eventually it builds up, and then when nothing matters, the viewers just disappear, because nothing matters. Like, why watch it, right? It's a discipline. Writing is a discipline. Not saying I can do it. I certainly can't. Remember, critiquing is 10,000 times easier than creating. I will say that as a possible out for me. Back on the ship, we set a course for the nearest Federation/Starfleet relay station, outpost, far away. Very cool. Finally, I'm going home. We're going home. We arrive at this station. I believe greeted by a funny and amusing Denobulan character. Is he a Denobulan? I'm not sure. If he is, it's been a while since we've seen one. But he's there, alone. I don't know why. His hair a bit askew. Maybe we could forgive his demeanor and attitude and his eccentricities, in how he is presented at least. We could forgive it based on being alone for a long time. Why did Starfleet leave him alone? We've seen this in Discovery as well. Discovery Season 3, I believe. When it began, there was one person left on some giant Federation station. Bad idea. You don't want to leave people alone very far away from civilization. Far from the ebb and flow of Earth, the mind tends to wander. Except in this case, where's he from? Denobula, Triaxa? Isn't that where Denobulans come from? Something like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's from Earth, right? I'm not from Earth. Just joking. What's he doing here? Why is he here? I don't know. The station seems pretty much automated. Not that that's a good idea. Our characters want to join Starfleet on her quote-unquote stolen ship. He's all too happy to admit them in. Maybe he's a little bit too ready to allow strange aliens showing up in a Federation ship that looks very advanced. Anyway, they go through the bioscanner. Dal, finally, I'm going to find out who I am. Gwyn is an unknown species. That's fine. But Dal has to report to Starfleet for further information regarding his biometric scan. What does that mean? You can color me interested. Dal has been searching his whole life for who he was. Now Starfleet has the answers. They do have the answers. Alright, I'm just going to uplink our station's computer to the Protostar. We're going to download your logs, and we're going to update your computer. And here we go. Click. Uh-oh. We've downloaded Dreadnought. Meanwhile, a still sick Gwyn from the end of the last episode, go back and watch it for more deets, enters a biobed that's sealed with a hard surface, right? So she's in a cylindrical, a sealed biobed, as it were. I want to fix everything. I want to get my old thoughts back. I want to fix my brain. After she was mind melted by seeing Zero, or at least a reflection of Zero off a shiny badge. We're setting up here something that can go very wrong. Claustrophobia. Anyone here claustrophobic? I hope not, because this station is going mad. The station starts attacking the Protostar. The Protostar starts attacking the station, I believe. The Protostar's docking mechanism is disengaged. The station starts cutting through itself. It all looks totally wild. It's totally cool, man. The station, and you get to see its laser saw blade through the surface of the station. Meanwhile, Gwyn's biobed is filling up with liquid. Boom, 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 boom. Get me out of here. She ends up getting herself out by summoning that strange sword device she had that I thought she lost, but I guess she has it back. Maybe they'll elaborate on that further. She breaks out. What are we going to do? Our Denobulan friend didn't love this part. Got away on a life pod. Sorry, no room for saboteurs. He says in this mean demeanor. One moment, he's totally open to these aliens he's never met before. Sure, come on in. What could go wrong? I'm all alone out here. What could go wrong? Come on in. The next minute, sorry, no room for saboteurs. And then he jettisons his escape pod and he's on his way. What's going on there? You know? Maybe had he been as open at that moment as he was originally, he would have given them a moment to explain themselves. You know, maybe they'd say, I'm sorry, we don't know what's going on here. You know, it's not our fault. Actually, let us help you to prove that we're not saboteurs. What can we do to prove it to you? Now, you might say that alarm bells ringing. We only got so much time to do this. So, in a hurry, cooler heads usually do not prevail. Starfleet should be trained to have the cooler head always. But this guy being so far away from civilization, maybe the loneliness has just gotten to him a bit. So I'll cut him some slack. What are we going to do to get back to the Protostar? For whatever reason, I rewound this episode 10 times trying to figure out what the reason for it was. I never got any good explanation. Janeway says, hologram Janeway that is, says that the transporter emitter is busted. I don't think she has control of the Protostar. They never said. But the Protostar is now orbiting the station? I don't know why. Usually, if something is spinning, you jettison from it. You do not inherit its orbital spin. You go off on a tangent equal to the tangential velocity at the point you detached, at the opposite end of the axis away from the center of the spin of that physics body. So really the Protostar, shouldn't it just be deflected off on a tangent? How come it's spinning around the station? Does anybody know? I rewound it a few times. I couldn't figure it out. Does the station have simulated mass? Like, what is it? Why is the station isn't that heavy? Is there another body of mass somewhere that we're all orbiting in an orbital system that I'm not familiar with? Makes for a fun scene, but I'm not like, I know masses attract each other proportional to the size of those masses and inversely proportional to the distance between those masses. Is the mass of the station and the protostar in free space big enough to cause an attraction that would counteract the inertia of the tangential velocity that the ship already had to exit the physics system of the station? Does it matter? Not really. How do we get back to the protostar? Rok-tahk. Oh, if we jump now, we should make it, I guess. I don't know, math reasons. I'm going to math the hell out of this. But unfortunately, we have to jump. I'm done with the space jumps. I don't want to see any more space jumps. I don't want to see people in suits jumping from one ship to another. I don't want to see any skydiving. We had it in Lower Decks again. It was all over Discovery. I don't want to see that no more. I'm done with that. I'm done with floating hologram stuff in floating screens that you can see through for no reason that blinds the operator. I don't want to see none of that no more. I don't need any more Star Trek 2009 right now, okay? Forget about jumping in space. Let's just not do that. That is so hard to do that. It beggars belief every time. Anyway, we put on our suits and we got to jump to the protostar. So we J.J. Abrams jump from the station all the way to the protostar. We miss. Big surprise. Protostar grabs us with a tractor beam. The protostar wasn't that far away. I could see it. Standing on the station, the protostar, it looked like it was maybe that big. Could Janeway have turned on the tractor beam already in the direction they were aiming, and then kept track of the station with the tractor beam, so that they wouldn't have to actually calculate the jump? Like they could just kind of just fall off, and then the tractor beam would just pull them? It would have been really cool if rok-tahk had come up with that idea. Makes sense. Make rok-tahk look smart. And it would be cool. That's not what we got. We got Abrams. We got the Kurtzman jump. We're saved by the tractor beam, brought onto the ship. But not before Gwyn. Light bulb goes off in her head. I remember everything. Guess what? We remember everything too. We know that the protostar is a Trojan horse. And it's coming back from the Delta Quadrant with all kinds of digital disease, baby. That being Dreadnought, who's really cool, and I want to see him again. Quite a scary character. Kind of a scary show in hindsight. Big adult themes, adult scares. Is it a kid's show? More importantly, does that matter? There's our main plot out of the way. Our secondary plot was for the fans, baby. I'm talking cash money, honey. Chakotay is back. We get to see a flashback from the point of view of real Janeway, watching a recording, holographic recording, of the launch of the protostar. And we're at the launch ceremony, and I believe we christen it with Chateau Picard? It's long been tradition to christen your ship as it launches with like a wine bottle, like liquor, something like that. I don't know. It's not important, but I think it was Chateau Picard. I couldn't really tell. It would have been cool if it was, though. Anyway, Chakotay is viewing it. Janeway is there, but this whole thing is just a hologram. Chakotay is going back to the Delta Quadrant. What could drive a man to go back to that place, you know? Drive someone to go back to hell. And that's when it clicked. That's the theme, overarching, of this show. Our characters are from the Delta Quadrant. This is the Delta Quadrant coming to us. You get it? Our characters, foreign as can be, except for a Tellarite. Medusan. They're from the Delta Quadrant. They find a Starfleet ship to take back to Starfleet. In Voyager, we took a Starfleet ship, inadvertently flung very far away from Starfleet into the Delta Quadrant, and then we had to get back. So one of them is a push and one of them is a pull. So it's an inversion of Voyager. Very smart. What drives Chakotay to go back out there? And why didn't he come back? He took the Protostar. Very advanced ship. Very fast. This time he'll get back in a fraction of the time. I believe is what he said. A touching moment between him and Janeway as our real Janeway watches. Why didn't you call for help? Why didn't you come back? I want to know too. They set up a very savory morsel for me to chew on. And we're treating our old characters with respect. Okay? Robert Beltran is back as Chakotay. Didn't miss a beat. He sounded perfect. Chakotay looked freaking sick in that uniform. Protostar looks sick. Maybe not the nacelles. Man. I know it's a cheap thrill just to bring back the old stuff, but getting the old stuff to come back in a non-butchered form is always a plus, I think. In a non-degraded and decrepit form. Janeway's new crew on a Dauntless-type starship. Watch Voyager for more about the origins of that ship. It's interesting. And it has its own reflections with regards to what's going on with the Protostar now. If you've seen all of Voyager, you know what I'm thinking. The relationship between these two ships. What's the same about them? What's different? Prodigy really strikes at the core of Voyager, doesn't it? It wasn't just a trick to get people to watch by bringing back Janeway, was it? No. There's a core in here that is born from the seeds laid out by the show Star Trek Voyager. There's something in there. It wasn't just a trick to bring back Janeway, was it? Give this show credit. Janeway's actual crew, now, years after this holographic recording was made, her crew looks so cool, by the way. They're so calm. They look so wise. Oh, freaking totally sick, the whole thing. You know, in a good way. They're bad. In a good way. Man, that Janeway, she's so phony. In a good way. They go back to the remnants of Tars Lamora. That hell that Dal and co. escaped. They escaped hell. And then they went back to save their friends. With the Protostar. Our characters in Voyager escaped their own personal hell of the Delta Quadrant. But then Chakotay went back. He's not so different than Dal, is he? What drives someone to go back to hell? What made Dal go back to hell? We already found that out. Now we're going to find out the other end of the equation in the rest of this pretty cool show. They find the Diviner's body floating there. Allegedly in some type of stasis. Floating in the debris of Tars Lamora. What does it mean? I don't know. That's your cliffhanger. I've taken a very small plot and stretched it into kind of a long review. Because there's not, plot-wise, much going on. It's more like a slow-moving roller coaster. With some breadcrumbs here and there. Thematically, what you're getting out of this is only what you're getting out of the show Prodigy as a whole. Emotionally, morally, in terms of messages, it doesn't stick the landing. It doesn't complete itself as a one-piece unit. This episode needed to be an hour long. To reiterate, visuals, you're always getting something beautiful with Prodigy, I think. It helps that the main starship looks cool. The station looks cool. Chakotay, fully on screen, in color, really there. Cool uniform. We get to see our new characters that are under the command of Admiral Janeway. I think she's an admiral. We'll call her Real Janeway. Setting up something interesting there. What if they find out the Protostar is responsible for destroying that station? And now we have a duel between fake hologram Janeway and then real Janeway. An interesting sci-fi question. Something that can only be solved in the genre of sci-fi. That means you're telling a good sci-fi story. How do you compete against a hologram of yourself, but they don't have your memories, and they're innocent, inadvertently poisoning ships in Starfleet, and you have to stop them? Your own hologram. Real Janeway versus Hollow Janeway. Cool concepts, cool visuals, beautiful music. The soaring Voyager theme, the beautiful motif of that intro. We are lost without Jerry Goldsmith. When you hear him come back with that Voyager tune when we see Chakotay, you can't beat it. Really, thematically, you're getting what I explained. You're getting things that can be mined from the show as a whole. As a single package, it's a little shallow. I don't know what this episode is exactly saying. We didn't get a good through line with our new character we met in the station. Intro should have been rewritten. Should have been a good explanation for why the Protostar was moving as it was as it detached from the station. Maybe a better plan for how to get back to it. No space jump. Even without a core theme, those changes would have brought this episode up pretty high. But as it stands right now, what's saving this for me is there are visuals and what it's setting up. That's it. Music, of course, as well. So the substance isn't quite there with this episode, but for me, it's getting a pass on what it's setting up and the surface details being just good enough. Had we not had the music, the visuals, the plot crumbs, Chakotay, had we not had that, this episode would have been pretty bad. Like, kind of very bad. But those details are worth a lot. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and give this first episode, as we return for the last half of the first season of Star Trek Prodigy, I'm giving this episode a 5.5. It's a little bit better than Take It or Leave It. I probably won't be coming back to it again, but I'm excited for what the future holds. Are you excited for what the future holds with Star Trek Prodigy? I know I am. You can tell me what you thought in the comments. I'm Lieutenant Mark, and I'm going to see you next time I see you.